Fellow Americans, there are phenomena that transpired that I could use to show you. There is a recorded breaching method as a scientific value, and there is a method behind it, a singular method that propagated all to roles, with where you have self-valued roles, where right where you don't want it, blaming other things, others, or selves for the real reasons why, for example, and how that we have black people's rights of eyes, and that subject was is replaced. And we have experts telling us there's things that we can't do. Oh, it's got to be Democrat or that. In other words, we know that the sciences they've been saying things that aren't true while pretending other for criminally foreign influence reasons, but also while tactically delusions are off. Too, like takes on witch trials. And this could be heal. I can heal you guys. I'm not even a doctor. Doctors, lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a journalist. Journalist has the right to lie for a whole bunch of reasons they need to, because they have a whole bunch of countries at once. And see, they confess things by when they pretend other. Then they're showing that they need to hide that, so they start pretending that they have beliefs that people should have faith in agencies or in branches of government where we're not supposed to have faith in them. We're supposed to understand why and how we need to get the Constitution unabridged, and why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And then and that's increasingly. In other words, nature shows us this too. But the words in the founding plan of James Madison and why they had to use a plan and hide what their actual words would have been in their actual communications. They had to declassify it afterwards. We have their words without that interpreted properly. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. In other words, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, a former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, for example, he is recorded with people from Connecticut, intercities and intra-cities, in intercampuses and intra-campuses. Roles with also courts and their family members, intercities and intra-cities, intercampuses and intra-campuses, and next to them, on a mass scale with a whole bunch of different countries and criminal enterprises, and roles out further with database tied locations, and then further at campuses, even down to when these things are brought up, the things that are being involved with hyper additionally, where and how other things, others ourselves, haven't been blamed, right? For where our founders and where nature itself shows us that a human fact nature breaching method is one of the things that is true always that caused, and that it was as value. They were as value the laws of the colonies and of the early states, and of them now. See, there have been predicate acts with facts roles, and with U/S of that. Excuse me, but that no one wanted. But it made exceptions, specifically to make styles. Nature's using those exceptions, and simultaneously needing to more and more self-value and sense for the breaching method. Everywhere the species body has a body standing. The human species individual body of individual bodies, with all group differences, now haven't been arranged through roles blamed other things, others ourselves, for the breaching method caused and maintains, which is that haven't been self-valued. Otherwise, the nature of science is that where they share a complete identity, we only have a part of it that we could discern with any subject, individual, group, or to the extent we could deal with them simultaneously. But wherever we have that extent, we have its hyper unique identity, complete identity relationship to itself, and the value of that three ways increasingly valued, further positive or negative to itself too, as a quality of diffusion, and as yourself slash S. But we have been systems abridged from this one hypernated pure. And the breaching method was more hyper sophistication before our people read and had to declassify to them this. And they measured and maintained that all location slash F slash value roles. Oh, but this is a good person though. It's true. Forgiveness though, however, because the differences of guilt here or there, A or B, right back to our location slash S. They were our collusion slash S. Those laws, that's another thing they were scientific value as. Collusion slash S. Collusion with that singular breaching method that both nature and that our founders communicated to us. Again, we will have people who would debate this. Then they'll lie about their motivations off for this, for that. I'm not a lawyer, When did lawyers not know witch trials? Even when they're still discussing it, there are people who already discussed witch trials, leaving out the breaching method, communicating tactically ulterior from what we were directed to communicate about America's founding locations. In other words, and then people want to have a debate on it. On their motives, or they want to have a debate about how we could see if they're honest or not about their motives, or I'll leave it to the courts. That when did that be left out? They have roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the prisons, and the state corrections offices. Know at the town line of Hartford / Wethersfield, and down the street from that Franklin Avenue there. It's Hartford Hospital. And there's a Demorals Market next to it through time, and there are other businesses there involved with the agencies, plural, and foreign and domestic, and mayor's families, people tied to mayor's families. Involved with all kinds, and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with all kinds of mail and wire crime, identity theft, fraud, slanders, overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the time with the interbranch forging names, switching names, all sides of criminal civil cases, lawyers at the same time, news at the same time, the different news places, the names next to them, their sources, the difference of that, all that used criminally for influence at the same time. They're just pumping out things because they also have to show how they have to hide all natures of uses of all natures of investigators, subject treatments, value treatments, names of identity, location, timing, values. The nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature used since before computers, used since before America's founders were born, used as tactically ulterior. And tactically breaching method employed. Criminal re-engineerings of the database's identities of relativity to ourselves. And we have people calling it fake race hate on themselves too, through time. Like people with the name Riley and people who repeated the name Jew, Paul Zano. In other words, he's involved with sequence shifts, identity thefts, and frauds for people tied to him too. In other words, and per his educators, these are people involved with Black KKK, Latino themed, Italian themed, intracultural, covering up live progressions from predicate acts that are relative to the kids that never had conversations in campuses. They're putting in predicate acts and acting tied to it, putting in fake motivations. And increasingly, the real motivations are fake ones because relative to how they have the intercities connected through time. Intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University is increasingly tied in intra-cities to first proven child abusers, leaders of the kids. And there were way worse roles, however, with all kinds of counters to the problems. And when they catch those people, actually, those are the people also forcing it. At the same time, with prisons and with the corrections officers, their family members, their campuses that train them, involved with with the FBI director in the courts and other branches were individually grouped and together before the World Trade Center attack. Intercities, they're putting fake transcripts in databases too. I never had conversations with the Leahy family. They've been planting evidences with multiple courts involved with predicate acts with them, fake transcripts through the mail. They're preventing me getting help from before the World Trade Center attack, as ones involved with the New York too, and the court next to it, and on both sides of that case. As people brought up with the police switching names and falsifying police reports, stacking fake evidences and collusion/S into New Britain Superior Court's databases, Harper courts, after the World Trade Center attack and before it, sickly distinctly. But and also in cases that had nothing to do with that, not just in real life, with foreign and domestic military. Increasingly, the roles with that intercities, intra-cities, with people in corners of streets in Wethersfield, and people involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts with the news. These are don't change what people say, and then give a summary of it, leaving out the predicate acts about the fake conversations with me and others that with the WFSB pretended I had conversations with them that never were, and with others that never was about the World Trade Center attack. And they attached me to fake and changed communications with everyone around me about that. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have intelligence involved with the NLRB, various natures of federal criminals involved with an NLRB case, who are also ones brought up inter and intra-cities of Connecticut. Increasingly, intelligence associated with East Hartford, Connecticut, and a Robert Chevrolet, and the name of the lawyer of him, and of Thaddeus Skabowski, is involved with a whole bunch of lawyers and police forms, foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprises, child abusers, people with the elderly homes and programs, their campuses, people next to body dumping spots, people who got murdered, people involved with that, people involved with the prop. In other words, all at the same time brought up intercities, untimely deaths at Trinity College. Same ones involved with planting evidence on my street with people from other areas, and the past neighbors forced to collusion, intercities and intra-cities. In other words, and with the name switching, interbranches were refusing to identify themselves legitimately. And originally and still, we had this theater of black, white, KKK, Confederate flag theme, and subject who leaving out what actually is recorded, clearer than day. They put me in fake conversations with the people, with the police involved with this when I was a kid and I was an adult. They have all kind of wire and mail crime methods, and then they try to cover it up with other tricks when they get caught with that. They should not have hid what I recorded them doing increasingly from off all locations /S, including campuses. Increasingly, you guys should not hide from the Wethersfield parents with the ones that you have, that you planted evidences with them, and further with the teachers, further involved with organized crimes with the kids, not legitimately. With the reading of the statute, you guys are leaving out the roles with predicate acts here. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. They have roles with the World Trade Center attack, including more people, Saudi, unless he was just dressed to be Saudi. And for example, one of the places involved with a whole bunch of people with their educators who attached me to fake ties, fake natures of ties to themselves. Also with people from like Fred Grisey is one of the ones who involved too. In other words, one of the ones I know the names of. Involved with putting me fake ties, fake natures of ties to my neighbors and him. and with people, and he has roles with the FBI and the courts next to the campuses with the people involved, like next to Trinity College. A whole bunch of people tied to a Fred Grisey involved with medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and the security at the school involved with it. And their rules with probate courts, judges, family members, with the wire crime acts and methods, and and superior courts, and district court people with the same house/s, also next to the state corrections offices. Increasingly more child offenders tied to a Lance Cuddy and a Daryl Chandler involved with foreign and domestic intelligence, even if with the FBI directors and other agencies involved with them, and state police families, interstates involved increasingly. In other words, with people tied to a Ray Reynolds. Every time a Ray Reynolds was near me, there were people putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me with their family members and with people involved next to and at my. The only time I had a class with him or saw him around school was one time when I was in kindergarten. I went to that school for 1 year. And there's a Harris family increasingly involved too with identity theft frauds with them, slanders with them. In other words, and then they have, in other words, so they speak about the branch of government equality, the little rat traps increasingly as victims, hyper victims, but everyone jumps in our conversations and you become victim predators, hyper predators. I shouldn't have to beg for you guys to get me off the fake conversations with you and with others. And others also did pretend that too. And so, in other words, they're refusing to identify themselves with the police forms, plural. Weathersfield Police, I believe, I don't know, it was another police form. One of the ones, because they're switching and forging names and refusing to get on writing since I was a kid. I caught them with all kinds of little methods of switching names, putting charges with no writing as collusion/s with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists now too at the same time, while tactically delusions are off black pupils. It is time to delineate the criminally foreign influence, factual nature, quality aspects of nature from their delusions. They're tactically induced delusions on them for the most part too. We're going to clear real fast, but they're going to have to get out of all kinds of scams against the people of Harvard Hospital, against the people of Harvard, more than there are with the Institute of Living. And this is not against the real medicine and the real healthcare. And we're going to have to show it because there's all kinds of legal scams there too. Tactically delusions raw, all kind of wire and mail crime methods with the family members of the telephone companies have roles with the agencies. Also at the corner of Walker Hill and Knott Street, increasingly with people, Chris Walters, and people with the name Spada, and people involved with that corner, involved with, I don't even know their name, they know my name, tied to them, and with the Delafair and the probate court judges. And they influenced her to plant evidences with people at 3 spots at the end of the Bronx Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. And this is where, so in other words, please, in other words, the celebrities, all they're saying is and just change the subject right on Facebook because they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents. They're making up things. They're using the right to lie with the FBI and the Britain Superior Court's Facebook pages and the one of the Weathersfield Police and with retired police chiefs with medical and sexual offenders roles. I recorded with the principal child abuser. They have more roles, more digital crime acts and methods and emails. They're changing and faking what's actually recorded and just faking the emails. They're planted evidence is a fake letter. I never sent a letter to Mr. What's his name? In other words, they're planting evidences between the campuses intercities with the same ones that have ties to the names on all sides of my house and on all sides of theirs. This is a little racket manifest that way at countries A through Z because they have a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people involved with murders and body dumping spots that they brought up at the same time. In other words, prepare your mind. So there's a detective Samuda who's one of the ones with the FBI, and at least 2 female judges black, white too, no, with some KKK black theme, Confederate flag theme, um, Latino themed, Italian themed at the same time. People with the police phones of involved with and falsified police reports, attach little kids to fake conversations with police as kids, and then through the mail trying to cover that up, pretending as an adult. In other words, and then they pretend they don't know, and they just keep talking, and they're using investigators, relying upon people are talking about such, and they're repeating such, increasingly. It's people also with the spots next to the state capitol and next to the news locations. So they are leaking this because they won't help. They're the obligated by mandated law. They're playing hear no evil, see no evil, pretend we're not roles with predicate acts with facts against the people, and it's them. Even when they're right about things. So they have more roles with Sandy Hook predators too, the Connecticut news locations. And there's a prison campus there involved too, with all natures of campuses, including fire and medical. Further involved here, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, including the military ones, clearer than day, black pupils. Many pray, boxing. Let's get them on paper, one name and sequence. So please, people on Valley Crest and conjunctions to it, people with the name schedule. I don't know if they pretended to know me, but they have roles with people also tied to the name Bajerio and Phil Cololo is involved with people with whiting forensics through time with Middletown security and intelligence families, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, involved with child offenders, leaders of kids, crime scenes, and medical and sexual offenders of kids and of elderly and of veterans. There are proofs too. In other words, they're using a torture method where this is valued, having been by everyone, having had this leveraged upon you since you were kids, where and how you have self-value roles. This is discernible where and how you have self-value roles replacing what nature and what our founders communicated about the scientific value of the human fact, cheap nature, breaching method, replaced from the communications of our founders, black peoples here. In other words, please, Dave Chappelle, please do what's right. And get them to get me off the fake conversations with them and get the interbranch on paper, one name and sequence. Where's the schedule live? Well, where's the what's the name? Scalora. Some guy gave me his card. He forced himself through my door. Didn't come out. How I know that's the real guy in the car. In other words, and he better not pretend I say anything to him. I didn't say nothing to him. That's a sick. These are sick methods that you're going to observe. They're actually what are recorded. When police are increasingly recording fake things relative to their roles with other agencies and their campuses, criminal foreign influence, retired police chiefs, increasingly involved with sick people from other areas, planting evidence on my street, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And them putting fake ties to me at the police station when I was a kid and now as an adult. They're refusing to identify themselves from before the World Trade Center. They know I caught them. And then they tried to cover it up with an Officer Hunter involved after the World Trade Center, involved with torture, extortion, in fact, cheap nature, slavery. He's also got sexual problems, this guy. I think he's gay. It's nothing personal. In other words, not interested. I'm not gay. Officer Hunter. He has roles with some sexual and medical offenders of kids too, and he's involved with a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and this detective Samuda, involved with some KKK black themed, Confederate flag themed intelligence people from UConn, also involved with all sides of Central Connecticut State University through time with a bunch of people that are also with that as the intelligence next to Harvard Hospital through it. They're implying that they have roles with Los Solitos, also confirmed, demonstrated on Facebook. And I don't know. They're trying to plant evidences with people with soccer, and they're putting their kids with. In other words, with all this. In other words, on Facebook, and then they block my Facebook. So the agencies have the difference of their guilt. where people who will go and defend the integrity of the agency anyway. In other words, the Weathersfield police just fake transcripts, fake ties to kids. And they do that as collusion with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, involved consciously with watching our kids where they're going to go. And the difference of them doing that worst or of our own people. They have sick rules, interagencies with thought and with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes and research locations. Also, where they make subject treatments and poll us, like Quinnipiac University, increasingly involved with people through presidential administrations, demonstrably influenced by their roles with people at Harvard Hospital, putting fake things in databases and through the mail. Fake conversations with me about, I never had any conversations with anyone about police equipment, police surveilling my family. This Leahy family has been spreading lies about my family since I was a kid. Roles with people that I never even had classes with, that and mayors too. At time roles with the Saudis increasingly involved with them, with these Connecticut courts, and with the the difference of it, because both America's name and Saudi's name and names A through Z are used remotely, hyper criminally foreign influence. So to speak is discernible relative to where and how. Again, you guys have replaced the scientific value of the human nature breaching method, where it is one of the things that things like witch trials and slavery were about simultaneously, true all ways. You guys have other things pretended. And all exception nature, you have collusions with that, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and set it up to have it. When the breaching method employed black and white and Native Americans against Native Americans to fight with each other and leave out how it tactically denatured the breaching method, it measures and maintains that left out, for example. Even if it wasn't true, it's more practical and probable to convict. If you take a look in America, in Northern Africa or Egypt, they took down a mountain specifically to begin the game of forcing people to blame other things, others, ourselves for things. Probably some international companies and criminal enterprises at the same time knew they were going to get caught for. So they used that leverage to get other things, others, ourselves blamed. And then to back people into defending that further. And then to defending that further. And then they had the exact as collusions with itself. And then further and further incapable of discerning the answers because nature would show. But they could no longer afford to discern nature's answers. Nature shows us clearer than day. There's a hypernative course we are forbid. With our free speech, we are forbid free speech. And if we try to say that, we are sensed and they change and fake our words. I was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center right before it. So so I know other ways too. A bunch of people tied to people with the name Scalora are also at the World Trade Center in Manhattan roles with Florida, Miami, Florida, with intelligence families, foreign and domestic, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, in the training of such, to counter such as collusions with Central Connecticut State University, increasingly with people with East Hartford locations and Central Connecticut State University, involved with Elm Streets in Rocky Hill and Weathersfield, involved with the educators of a whole bunch of people from Weathersfield, Interbranch, and their educators, involved with, they'll tell you, in other words, fake and change, their roles with federal predicate acts, their educators, and with identity theft frauds and slanders, and with people that are putting class placements and people and making people that don't know each other at all in collusions with that. Also, as people collusions with the use/s of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, the family members, the sources, the same thing with the courts, and they're the positions, same thing. And the intelligence and the news at the same time, putting the same sequence ship self-value. For example, The beginning of the Old Testament says, only defend right here where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part before it. It's all right if people don't believe that. No, in other words, but it's not right to leave that out and pretend you're about science and then pretend passions and emotions when it's about too. It's about this. It's about the Constitution's abridgments. The republic for which we stand has been abridged since some ancient times. In other words, so they could no longer afford to have discerned what nature will answer our questions, how it does, how it shows us the value of how we are really identity of relativity to the databases of the republic for which we stand and of the private and of that not even discerned. Because while have everyone causing more and more rules against the human species body, against the human species body, all counters to it, exceptions also as collusions, keeping other things, others yourselves, functionally for the breaching method blamed, but everyone pretending they could speak for positive or negative anywhere. Many pray. So in other words, we have to understand how and why. In other words, obviously we have to observe this. Where how we are prevented mandated law proper relative to how we have rights are too numerous to list, and they're making fake exceptions, and they have collusion /s at all the campuses. There are a whole bunch of other confessions made simultaneously and recorded. See, people are hiding what's actually recorded. When because for example they were used remotely, forced checked her persuaded certain victims, a hyper victim, to defend their readings of statutes regarding the validity of what is said online or not, and their judgments by it, and what they do to hide the actual value of that, because that's where and how they're being used remotely at countries A through Z. Not just blaming other things, others ourselves, for what our founders told us, and nature itself shows us to blame on him with fact should be nature breaching method. But what right where it's increasingly showing that as value to understand that with it with the subject /s, it's also having that replaced and having there are roles, needs, natures of styles like with industries and their motivations there. They shouldn't be jumping in our conversation, changing and faking what we say, and self-valued roles with the fake audio and video, and changed audio and video and digital, which is actually recorded at interbranch locations. The news has been lying about the outcomes of legal cases with people increasingly at and next to union locations, totally different unions, because involved with planting evidences, fake exceptions of people next to each other, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. Increasingly, people who have messed with the kids with the narratives and to my teachers behind my back with my science classes, also as ones with the World Trade Center attack, and as ones with all sides of criminal and civil cases at the same time with the news, interstates, and with the World Trade Center attack. And you guys have the audacity to fake and change what I say. Many pray. In other words, men do law. In other words, a whole bunch of people, there's violence involved too. In other words, the people I need to get the names of involved. See, they brought people from other areas through time with how they get away with what they're trying to do now. In other words, still, they have two, 3 times they have a few times they have the fire department involved. It's not just the last time. They won't identify with Inspector Mike. They won't legitimately identify himself. And he called me out of nowhere to confess his roles with it, like years ago. And these are people involved through the years with the Wethersfield police, with other countries putting fake things in databases with the courts, and people with the state judicial branch offices in conjunction and various natures of conjunctions to it, like Wethersfield Pizza House increasingly involved with the wire crime acts and methods of the judicial and executive branch grouped too, and people increasingly at Hartford Hospital like a Mark Violet and a Nick LaPera. I've never had any conversation with Nick LaPera. Trying to make a fake exception with a outside of a Brian Bonan's house. It has something to do with Brian Bonin and Maria Vizino, with Mark Violet and Nick LaPera and Justin Klavinskis and a Joshua Julian, also with the face and a Joshua Schumack with the Facebook page of the Wethersfield Police in the Britain Superior Court, also with people with the name Kerr and K-N-E-R. And then they made a whole bunch of Facebook pages after it. And those are passion crimes with rape threats from the Facebook page of their own Facebook page after the World Trade Center attack. Because before the World Trade Center attack, Dean Judd with Central Connecticut State University, his kids, they have roles with a whole bunch of people with different countries and the borders and the border towns and the counters and the agencies and the World Trade Center. Is recorded how he used remotely criminally foreign influence, tactically delusion throughout. Is recorded how they keep the identities of the law that are many at countries XYZ as locations, areas, and states, as styles of natures of logic that can't afford to be, let alone to protract. So they sense, short words proper by the identity the sciences share. As per why and how, it says, with the names of the people will sciences come together, and why and how, it's about science. But this part is left out with natures of debate. It is more, there are other reasons. There are proofs too that, I forget that. So in other words, please, follow me to the law. I'll show you guys. There's more people in the background. I'm going to show you a whole bunch of methods they have that a breaching method showed them to use. And I'm going to show how that was motivated to that. They have rules of all kinds of natures of stuff. There are proofs with the human trafficking worst roles is this hyperforeign, because they have timed roles with such. With the people that are including with all kinds of different in police forms and their roles with the elements of undercover and all that, as their roles with the wire crime acts and methods, with these people with the name Leahy, with the Cololo family, a whole bunch of people with the name Leahy and Lombardo, and tied to it Kevin Dillon and Anna Dillon, involved with there are some proofs too on Facebook. I saw Thomas Dillon's also involved with some sexual and medical offenders of kids, and some legal ones, some intelligence at New Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, before and after the World Trade Center attack. Also involved with elderly homes. And there are proofs with veterans' homes and next to it. And there are people associated with a John Maiano. I think it's a David Santangelo. I never had a verbal conversation with him in my life. He's increasingly involved with people with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and all kinds of predicate acts and child abuses and roles all along the Burlington Turnpike with like Spot's relative. But it's one of the things that connects people to as their roles that are connected also by the predicate acts, like with WFSB, with WTNH, and with Fox Connecticut News, and with the names next to them involved.